Okay, in this week's discussion of utilitarianism, we are comparing a scenario presented. Imagine UT Tyler's president found a provision that allows public universities to ban concealed handguns when 90% of faculties vote to do so. Now, the question is, according to utilitarianism, should he exercise this provision and call a faculty vote? Uh, okay, first we understand that utilitarianism is all about maximizing pleasure for the most, for the majority and minimizing pain. So, by face value, you would think that okay, maybe by him deciding to call a vote, he might be looking to appease the majority of his faculty. But then the question now becomes how much pleasure how much do we consider the students' rights, and how much do they value being able to carry a concealed weapon? Because if they, in a sense, you're always going to have a larger student body than the faculty. So in a sense here, you are actually having a smaller group benefit from a larger group. But let's not look at it from that perspective. Let's just kind of assume that the faculty is the majority in this case, and the minority would be maybe the 10% of faculty that didn't vote, or potentially the few students that would carry a gun, because then not every student is going to want to carry a gun. If we analyze this from utilitarianism from two perspectives, Banstrop perspective is saying that you can view this from intensity and duration. In other words, how much pleasure, how intense is the pleasure that these faculty members would gain from banning students' abilities to carry a gun. And then if you look at it from the Mills perspective, it's more based on, it kind of contradicts a little bit, because let's assume that from Banstrop perspective that the faculty members really feel that students shouldn't carry guns to school, and by banning guns, they will maximize the overall happiness of the faculty. But then if we look at Mills, even though he believes in high and lower pressure, and one of the things that he mentioned was that any country that have rights and freedom tend to maximize utilitarianism, because people are generally more happy. Because now, being able to carry a concealed weapon is a right that's been granted legally by the government. So if you're taking that away, in a way, I guess, if you think about it, that does kind of contradict his perspective. But if we also look at the consequence of banning concealed handgun, does it outweigh the pleasure, or I should say, does it outweigh the faculties, the pleasure that the faculties have to be able to ban it? So what are some of these consequences? Well, the law was passed to minimize violence or gun violence on campus. So if you're a faculty member who's concerned that a student could retaliate against you because he or she is not able to just carry the weapon, then you'll probably think that the consequence would be potentially putting yourself in harm's way, or another faculty member in harm's way. But then if you look at it from the other perspective, where you feel like maybe a student being able to carry a handgun could potentially stop or reduce the amount of mass shootings that could happen on the campus. But in all, however you slice the pie, I don't believe this actually would be utilitarianism, just because of the fact that we don't really have a way of, I guess, quantifying how much pleasure the faculty members would gain, or what would be the benefits that they would gain from banning guns, and who is going to hurt more? Would it be the 10%, assuming that they didn't vote against it, or would it be the student body, the few, maybe percentage of the student body that would want to carry a gun to school? And kind of looking at both perspectives to see whose consequence, I guess, is worse than the other. It's a little bit weird, because most of the examples that were given in the book, you're usually dealing with a situation where you have to sacrifice for a few for the greater good of the most, like the case of the sailors, or other examples in the text, where here we're assuming that the faculty members is the majority, and we don't really have a way to prove that they actually gain pleasure from banning these guns.